Hello. Hi, Melva.
I'm Gigi.
And we're in Him.
Woo woo.
Hallelujah. Yay.
So, as you know, I made a little prayer closet yesterday. I was feeling led
That's
to
cute.
do it because I get distracted very easily by my surroundings. And so, um, when I take time to pray or I'm sitting on the couch, my floors are hard, so I can't sit on the floor. Um, and then if I sit on the couch, then I'm like, this item, that item, my phone, the television, this. That. So I think I needed a little hideaway to take away from that. So I actually used it today
Hey.
and it was nice. I enjoyed the quiet time and setting up the atmosphere with
Amen.
instrumentals and a
Yeah.
candle and get to lay it down on the carpet and take notes. So, based on that, I have a couple of different things that I was able to read and use that for today. But before I get into that, um, I think I mentioned this to you. A friend of mine reached out to me about a prayer request for one of her friends.
Mhm.
And then I had a friend of mine reach out to another friend of mine reach out to me for a prayer request for herself.
Okay.
And so the common theme has been fear, you know, whether it's, and then someone else before that had sent us a video about the spirit of fear. And so I thought it was very interesting because I was able to identify a lot of stuff with my family. Like my dad's father passed away when he was 11, when my dad was 11, due
Mhm.
to I don't know if it was a heart attack, but something along those lines. And I know when my dad gets stressed out, he just starts, his heart starts beating fast. He has to sit down. He just, gets anxious. Um, my brother has had recent stuff where he had to kind of put down some work stuff and get his
Wow.
life together because of work stress and the move of a new job. And when you're moving to a new job, you're considering, oh, they have this expectation and this and that. And then even for myself, whenever I'm in different settings and things seem out of control, I call you. I'm like, what do I do? Blah blah blah, and I got to process through all of this. So I've seen and a common theme with our family in itself is fear based,
Mhm.
and which is why we don't step out of our comfort zone to do certain things because we're like, well, what will happen if we do this or what will happen if we do that? So,
Yeah.
some of these friends that had reached out, there are things that were kind of stress related, out of their control. So I think one, I wanted to touch base on that because we don't pay attention to that enough of being fearful of
Yeah.
something
I think
or
so.
that it kind of restricts us from allowing God. Our fear becomes greater than God,
Amen. Yeah.
which is not
Yeah.
what's intended.
I along with that, and because that's a really good point, along with that whole point of fear, the whole not today, devil, and people say that, just as a colloquialism, not today, devil, uh, or the devil thought he had me,
Mm.
or
I say the
what's
devil is
another
a
one?
lie.
The devil is a lie.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that was the one I was looking for. Uh, and people will say, well, there's nothing wrong with that, just calling the devil out. But the point is that he loves to be mentioned. He loves a focus. That's the whole thing about spirits. He loves a focus. So and they'll take negative, even a negative mention, um, talk about me. Um, I think we need to really concentrate on scripture more and just really concentrate on the Father on who God says we are, not not give the devil focus, not give him anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, and some people really take offense when you take those things from them. You know, when you take things away from. Uh, I know we were teaching about. I can't even think about what it was right now, but it was something that wasn't scriptural, but they wanted to say it and use it anyway. Well, it's not
Huh?
of this one. I can't remember what it was. They said, well, it's not in the Bible, but it's just something we say.
Who is they?
Some people that used to be at our church.
Oh, okay.
It's not in the Bible, but it's something we say. But if it's not in the Bible, why would you say it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because I like
Like,
it.
what was the? I know you can't remember the phrase, but like, what them by them saying it, were they trying to say, well, this is what we believe in, even though this is not what's like? I don't.
Yeah, because actually she said everything's not in the Bible.
Mm.
But okay. So
Well,
my
I
husband said,
mean, is it safe to say everything is in the Bible, just not worded the way that, like, you might
that's
not?
not what she meant.
Oh, okay.
Because I understand where you're going. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I said it a little differently. That's not what she was saying. Everything's not in the Bible. That's what she said. So we said, my husband said, well, okay, we're not going to do that here. You know, you can do what you want to do at your house, but we're not doing that here. We're not going to teach that here.
Mm-hmm.
And they just eventually, you know, left. Because I think she felt like we were taking some power away from her or something, you know? And
What power? But from her making a statement that isn't along the lines of scripture, the power of what? Her feelings?
to do what she wanted to do, I guess, to teach what she wanted to teach, you know?
Mm.
Anyhow, that's a whole thing though, you know, you want to stay in line with scripture. And if you can't find it in the Bible, no,
Yeah.
why are we adding things? And the scripture talks about that by adding things and taking things from the Bible. Your name is not going to be in the book of life. So I think, you know, you just don't want to do that. And that's how we operate at our ministry. We're just not, we're going to be safe. And if it's not in the Bible, we're just kind of not going to do it, you know, or say it. But people like their colloquialisms, you know, they like to say things because it's kind of what we say.
Well, what about like when you look at scripture? Um, Not everything that happened was something that was always done. Like, like Jesus, the way that he established things, that um, it wasn't something that you would see other prophets and other, like his way of doing things was not
Mm-hmm.
similar to it. Or John the Baptist, of how God was calling him to do a certain thing or walk in a certain way. Not everything was
The same,
the same. It was seen for,
isn't
like,
that?
seen an individual for their personality, what God
Mm-hmm.
put in them, of that. And so everything is in the Bible, but I also would say that when we say don't put God in a box, I also don't ever want to say that God's not trying to use our personality to create another form of how he wants to communicate a certain thing or how he wants to do a certain thing.
Absolutely, I get that. That's not a problem. I mean, because everyone's different, and God is going to use us in the way that He wants to use us. But they wanted to do something that even Jesus didn't do, that no one in the Scripture did it. you know. So
Yeah. So how would we
nobody in the whole Bible ever did that.
right. How would we connect that back to fear?
Um, okay, I forgot where I was going. Oh, I was saying that we mentioned the enemy too much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We give him too much credit, you know. Um, that's number one. Stop. And when you pay attention to him, you it's like saying it's like giving him, like, hey, giving him time to play some more, hey, I'm going to do this, and they'll talk about me more. Number one, just stop talking about him so much.
Right.
Number two, go back to the scriptures, or this should be number one, because stop talking about him so much, because we're going to talk about the Father more, because you don't want your focus to be there. It draws focus to the devil. Oh, the devil just did. You ever heard people do that? The devil just did this today. He did that. Why are we talking about him?
Right.
Let's
Well, it
talk.
reminds me of when I brought up First Kings 18 to you last week, right? We
Mm-hmm.
were talking about how Elijah came to the king of Israel to say, hey, bring the Israelites to Mount Carmel, bring the 450 prophets of the idol Baal, and
Yeah.
all of those things. And so I was asking you, I was like, well, you know, witches are real. The
Mm-hmm.
way that, like, the reason why a lot of people believe in what they believe in when it comes to the manifestation and crystals and all these different things of
Right.
making voodoo dolls and
Yeah.
like whatever it is, hexes and stuff like that, like that's real. um but in that scripture, it was like Elijah told those, one, it was pretty cool to see that there are prophets that are not under Christianity, right? It's like God has given us gifts, but what spirit are you submitting that under?
Exactly.
Right? So they're not under the spirit of God. And so he was like, for them, you take this animal, make an altar, cut up I don't know if he gave the instruction to cut up the animals, but either way, they cut
He
it
did.
up and they put it on the altar. And between them and between Elijah, the one prophet, submitting to God, he was like, let's see whose God wins this battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked you, I said, well, why didn't anything happen on their end? They were cutting themselves. They were from morning to noon crying out. If in all of these other circumstances, the devil is able to, through them, make
Yeah.
something move, why in this situation did it not happen? And your response was like, well, in those other situations, God will allow certain things. In this situation, he did not. So
Yeah.
it's to show God authorizes, God has the authority, God has the final say of
Mm-hmm.
what's allowed to take place or not.
Yeah.
Um, so that's when you were talking about giving the devil too much credit, or whatever. That's what my mind went back to, is that conversation.
That's very good, because people tend, and he wants people to do this. And right now we're keeping him focused. But what he wants people to think is that he's right here with God, because that's where he wants to be. As a matter of fact, he said, I'm going to raise my throne above God's. Just like, wow, you know, such arrogance. So that's why he got kicked out. And but doesn't mean he still doesn't have aspirations, just bad as they are. Um, but if he can get people to think that he is, then they will put him here. Then you have those people that want to put him here, because we're not focusing on God enough for the world. Um, That's crazy too. I heard something the other day, and we'll talk about it later. But so our focus has to be on the Father, always on the Father, and what the scriptures say, and think about the things that He's told us to think about, those things that are true, pure, perfect. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, which things are virtuous, are lovely, of good report. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, I think I just said that. But anywho, my favorite fear scripture is did I just lose that again already? Favorite fear scripture, and I know it verbatim, but I'd rather take you there. 1 John 4:18. It's my favorite fear scripture. I think it's even clear in King James. There is no fear in love. And there's a verse just above that, 1 John 4:8. And let's start with 4:7. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. Because we don't know how to love unless we know God. We know what feels good to us. We know what we like. We know how somebody makes us feel. We know who we admire, and we say, I love that. We know the things that move us.
Mm.
But God is saying, how they always talk about the three kinds of love, the phileo love, eros love, and agape love. So they're saying that agape love is the love that God has, that you don't have to do anything or be anything special for Him to love you. So what do they call that love? Unconditional. We need to examine that one day. But anywho, it's great. It's a great idea. Yeah. Unconditional love. You just have to be for Him to love you. So, and God, you can't know love if God is love and He created it, but you don't know God. How can you know love? You can have an idea of what you think love is.
Yeah.
But to know love, you have to know the Father.
Yeah.
The one who created love. Okay. So I always like to take that and put it with the scripture. There's another one, John 4:16.
1 John 4:16.
Same chapter. The 15th. Let's start the 15th verse. Whosoever shall confess that Jesus is the Son of God, God dwelleth in him, and he in God. And we have known and believed the love that God hath in us. God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. So if we believe that Jesus, and I love this, we believe that Jesus is the Son of God, meaning if you're a son, then you're like your Father, right? So you love like Him. We have the same mind. Jesus said, let the same mind that be in us, Father, be also in them. That's the oneness that God and Jesus have, is because their mind is the same. But Jesus knows order. He's my Father. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to hear Him. And I only do those things that my Father tells me to do or moves me to do. I only do those things. This is order. This is how Jesus even shows His love to the Father. And in John, the 14th chapter, it says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Here I go. The commandments are the words that came out of God's mouth. And so this is all that the Father has ever wanted, us to keep those commandments, So, but what did Israel do? Break them all the time. That's why then they were in a bad way, long time, So, or still are in a bad way, long time. So, um, but Jesus came and we taught those commandments, restored, we taught those commandments again to Israel, and now they extend to everyone else. So if you love God, you'll keep his commandments. So this is the mind that we should have with God. God is love, and his mind is placed in those love. That's why those commandments, the 10 commandments, are also called the love law, because God is love, and everything he did was out of love for us. Those commandments are a marriage covenant. Anywho, so verse 17. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as he is, so are we in the world. So we're going to be just like him in the world because we love him. How do we love God? We keep his commandments. That's how we show our love to God. Okay, 18. There is no fear in love. There's no fear in this. This scripture has always meant so much to me. And I've been reading it for years, and I've known it. It's one of those scriptures I've always quoted because it means so much to me. And it's so clear in itself. There's no fear in love, love being God, right? No fear in love, because perfect love casts out fear, because fear hath torment. Now, God can't help but be perfect, right? If you are perfected, if your love is perfected in God, can't help but be perfect. Perfect love casts out fear, because fear has torment. If ever you feel yourself tormented in any way, I'm going to fail my test. They're going to get me anything. Then that's fear. Fear can't help but torment you. It's the enemy's number one weapon against us. And fear is the base or the nucleus to
all the other,
just about every negative thing you can think of.
Right.
Control. Someone has a controlling personality. It's based in fear. If you're angry, it's based in fear.
When you
keep digging,
when you manipulate, it's based.
Yes, that's based in fear. Keep digging, you'll find it. What are you afraid of? I ain't scared of nothing. Keep digging. You'll find it. Get to the bottom of that. I ain't scared of nothing. Well, why do you want to control it? Well, because they ain't gonna get over on me. Okay, who's trying to get over on you? Man, they trying to make me think that I'm stupid. Oh, okay. So you're afraid that people want you to think you're stupid. There's a fear in that. I ain't scared of them. Then what are you? I'm mad. Well, what are you mad about? Man, they not gonna get over on me. So you're afraid that people want to get over on you. It always comes back to fear.
Right.
Keep digging. You'll find that fear.
I think that's why God was allowing me to just hear these messages and then just see how frequently it comes up in people around me and even myself. It's not just people around me. I go through stuff too.
Sure. Yes.
But it was like the understanding, like this is the like you said, the foundation of the barrier that then opens the avenue to all the other things that it could stem into. But the number one thing is we give it permission. So when we go back to the story of God versus the prophets of Baal, right? Baal, whatever, I don't know. Baal.
However you pronounced it. However you pronounced it, it was wonderful.
Baal or Baal.
Whichever.
It has no real name. It ain't a real thing, you know. So who cares? But either you trust God or you don't.
That's so it. That is so it right there. I'm gonna finish this scripture. Then I want to go to another scripture. It says here, because fear has torment, he that feareth, if you have fear, is not made perfect in love, that means you're not whole
Mm-hmm.
in God, because God is love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have fear, then you're not perfected. Look at those love. Look at those 10 Commandments again. You're not perfected in the love in who God is. You're not perfected with God. You're not a whole person with God yet. Um, so that means you still, if you have fear in a certain place, that means you still have dying to do in that
Mm-hmm.
area.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at real quick. Let's look at Hebrews 11 and 6. Because you said, I'm sorry, 6 and 11.
Either you trust God or you don't.
Right. Hebrews 6 and 11. I'm sorry. I always do that. Wait a minute. No, I said it right the first time because I even thought about it before I said it. 11 and 6. Um, I love this. And we were talking because we're talking about fear and faith. And one of those things we have to, and it depends on how much I love what you said. You either love God or you don't. You know, and that's the same as saying you either love yourself or you love God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't have two people trying to drive a car, right?
Right.
One person is going to be the passenger princess or prince, and one person is going to drive,
Right.
one or the other. So, I love that we have to. A lot of people have these messages: faith over fear, or no fear, just faith. Those little things like that. That's so important because um, in the 6th chapter of the 11th, I mean, 6th verse of the 11th chapter of Hebrew, which is another one of my favorite scriptures, it says, but without faith, it's so important to me because it's so important to me to make the Father happy, to please him. And that's why these two scriptures were so important to me as I was growing up and even now. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. Now you just messed with me because I don't want to I don't want to be like this. I want to please him in everything I do. So, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. For him that cometh to God must believe that he is.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have to believe that he is and he exists, and that he is a rewarder to them that diligently seek him. Diligently meaning that I'm going to always seek him. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to be, voracious in that, seeking him all the time. In all my ways, I acknowledge him so that he'll direct my path. What was the other one? First Peter, they're just coming. The scriptures are just coming. First Peter 5. I'm all of and what these scriptures always, when we read the scripture, a lot of people probably don't like it because it feels like it's taking your control and your power away from you. It's pulling a rug from under you because, well, I got to do these things for myself. What about me? I mean, I'm supposed to be, and I'm boss and I'm, this, but the scripture says, humble yourselves under the, 1 Peter 5 and 6, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. How do you do that? There's colon after that. What is it that I need to do to humble myself, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he'll exalt me? Because one thing we want to be is exalted for real. I mean, we like being exalted. How do I do that? By casting all my care on him, for he cares for me.
Right.
That means I have to give up everything.
Right.
But I'm the boss. I mean, I'm out here doing. I'm making deals and I'm shaking. And come on now, I'm the boss. Well,